What's up, everyone? Perhaps some of you who are older remember the Weekly Reader. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and we got a little newspaper at school called the Weekly Reader. And it was fairly alarmist. I remember getting a Weekly Reader where the cover was a man standing in a bunch of polluted water with cans floating around in it and dead fish bones, and basically he was wearing a gas mask and the sky was black with pollution. And we were told that this was our future, that we would run out of gas, that we would run out of oil, that we would run out of space, that we would pollute everything. And I was so indoctrinated by this that when I was a child, I went to visit my grandfather in West Seattle. And the two of us drove by Alki Beach there in West Seattle. And I said, Grandpa, isn't that awfully dangerous for people to be swimming in the ocean? Isn't it just terribly polluted? And he just looked at me funny. But the truth is that alarmism came out of the late 60s. It started with a really good book called Silent Spring. And that was kind of warning people about the dangers of pesticides, which was really legit. But that started to accelerate with books like Spaceship Earth and the Club of Rome, which the Rockefellers put together and held at the Bellagio in Italy. And they created all kinds of horrific scenarios that everything was going to be terrible by the time I grew up, and we're going to run out of everything. Well, none of that happened. In fact, the water is cleaner than it was when I was young. The air is cleaner than it was when I was young. This is happening everywhere in the world. And there's exceptions to that, but in general, the world's better off than it was when I was born. And there's less famine, and people are fed better, and life expectancy in the global south is twice what it was when I was growing up. So those things never happened. The Chicken Little thing, the sky is falling, never happens. And that's the wisdom you get as you get older. You realize that this alarmist stuff is alarmist stuff. And we worried about the population bomb, and we really worried about having too many kids. And I went to grad school way too long, and my wife and I waited way too long to start having kids, and we ended up with one. And the truth is we need 2.2 per family to maintain the population, not just to grow the population. The United States is nowhere near that. We've got the lowest birth rate we've had in ages. And in order to maintain our economic system, we're going to have to bring in tens of millions of immigrants. Now, that is not politically popular. You and I both know that. And that's just the case in Western Europe. In China, the one-child policy is going to ruin that country, because you're going to have 4 retired people for every working person at some point, and that is not sustainable. We need to have a balanced population pyramid. In many parts of the world now, what's happening is we're developing an inverted population pyramid with very few people in the younger ages and lots of people in the older ages. And the idea that you can just retire and have those very few young people support you is not going to work. And so we're going to have to look at this, and perhaps we should look at the Bible. What is the first commandment? Be fruitful and multiply. And God repeats it 5 times in the book of Genesis, just in case we weren't listening the first time. Human population is good. People are on balance an asset, not a liability. People create wealth, people create creativity, people do all kinds of good things. And the more people in general, there's excesses to that, is a good thing. And we need to look at that and the wisdom in the Bible. And I feel bad for the current generation of young adults who are saddled with ridiculous debt from college loans and all of that stuff, student loans. And they have to put off family formation for a long time. And then we encourage that by saying, you better wait till you're 30, 35 before you get married and start a family, and you've wasted 10 to 15 years of your most healthy fertility. Our bodies tell us when it's time to reproduce. And with social connections and with social support and with extended family support, those things are possible and they work out really well. There's no evidence that people who get married later do better in life. And so we look at these things and think, okay, maybe family formation is something we should be encouraging. Maybe having children is something we should be encouraging. And maybe we should look at some of the wisdom in the Bible as being timeless, because we've forgotten it for a generation or two, and we've aborted about 1/3 of the United States births potential births in the last couple of generations, and we're missing about 60 million people, which could be contributing to our society, contributing to the arts, the sciences, to beauty, to all kinds of things. And we're missing out on those people. So let's just think about that. I'm not telling anyone what to think. I'm just questioning the way we have been thinking. And perhaps alarmism is not the thing that should be driving our behavior. Perhaps trusting the Word of God and trusting that creation is not a closed system, it's an open system, where miracles and life and all kinds of good things happen is the best way to look at the world. That's the good news for today, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.